If you remember, a few weeks back, there was a raid by the police on Fidesz data centers. And it was a raid to do with the National Cultural Fund, because there have been claims that in many instances, funds that were set aside for culture were used by Fidesz politicians to further their own political careers in various places around the country. Now, this raid and the seizure of their servers was to do with the police looking for information that would perhaps implicate other people in Fidesz to see whether or not this was something that was coordinated rather than done locally. However, when they did this, of course, they got their hands on all Fidesz communication. And I posited then that this was a great find for the present government, for Tisza, because it would allow them eventually to get their hands on this information and to use it to see what Fidesz were doing, have been doing, who they're talking to, so on and so forth. In some sense, a huge overreach. And just recently, a few days ago, a court, the Hungarian Supreme Prosecutor's Office, announced on the 12th of August that while the search warrants for the data center hosting Fidesz's servers were lawful, the actual seizure of the data carriers was not carried out properly. Investigators gained access not only to material relevant to the National Cultural Fund, like I mentioned, but also to unrelated data, of course. The Bács-Kiskun County Chief Prosecutor's Office has therefore been ordered to repeat the procedure, this time strictly filtering the electronic data so that only material connected to the case and its relevant time period is seized. The authority now has 3 months to complete this. This investigation concerns the distribution of about 17 billion forints in grants from the Cultural Fund and is being conducted for the crime of breach of trust. Fidesz has, of course, filed several complaints. The Supreme Prosecutor's Office rejected those challenging the legality of the searches themselves, but upheld the complaints against the seizure orders. It described the original approach as a possible fishing expedition, which is exactly what it was, in which investigators obtained the full content of the data carriers rather than only potentially incriminating material. Such a method is considered unlawful under both EU and Hungarian law when the server operator or owner is not a suspect. This data, of course, is now out there, and this data, you would have to be naive to think that this data has not already been copied. Doubt that this was suddenly siloed and kept away from anyone else who could possibly have an interest in it. I'm sure that this data has already been shared with the relevant people. Orbán Viktor had described the server seizures as something that cannot happen in the Western world, but weirdly enough it does, and had not occurred in Hungary in the previous 36 years, claiming the prosecution had taken the party's entire membership register on political orders. This is great in some sense because this is sort of a legal victory. Yay! But it doesn't change the fact that the government and the prosecutor's office and whoever else investigating this took advantage of a police search to gain data that they shouldn't have access to. It's a moral victory, but the damage already has been done because the information that was contained on those servers, I doubt if it's been kept safe. I would be shocked if it is not already in the hands of perhaps not Tisza, but maybe people who would be happy to share that information with Tisza, our government. Another thing Peter Magyar and his government campaigned on in the run-up to the election was accountability. They always said that the Fidesz government before never had any accountability when things went wrong. People would always stay in their jobs. Now, as you know, Hungary is experiencing a heat wave and also a drought. Temperatures have been very hot here, although right now today we're just in the low 30s, so it's actually quite nice. Well, we have a water shortage all over. We have been told to conserve water, which is, of course, a normal thing to do. Now, we have a little bit of an issue now in the news, and this is to do with the State Secretary responsible for water affairs. Now, her name is Agnes Kelemen. Now, you would think that in a situation like this Kelemen lady, she would be here the whole time, making sure that things are running smoothly. Well, it turns out she hasn't been. Worse than that, it turns out she's been lying about what's been going on, and the government hasn't been clear. So in early August, during Hungary's severe drought and low Danube water levels, Opposition politicians claimed that Kelemen had gone on holiday abroad instead of managing the crisis. Now, the reason they claimed this, I'm guessing, is because they knew that she had. These Fidesz people said that ministry sources and an internal email indicated that she was unreachable while abroad, and they demanded her resignation as a result. And they described it as hypocritical that while the public and companies were being asked to save water and electricity, she wasn't here doing her job. Now, when this first came to light, or this accusation was first made, her boss, Minister Gajdos, he strongly denied that she was on holiday. He said that she had a planned vacation but cancelled it after a late-night Defence Committee meeting, and he later stated that she had been sent to Austria on official business to assess the Danube situation. Now, Kelemen herself, she avoided the topic when contacted by the media, saying she didn't want to discuss it. Yesterday, it turns out, guess what? She didn't meet with the Austrians because someone asked the Austrians, and the Austrians, being the people that they are, they said no. They said that the contact with her was limited to telephone discussions. There was no in-person meeting, and this directly contradicts the Hungarian government's claim that she travelled for personal talks. So what do we have here now? What we have now is that when Tisza ran for election, they always said that there was no accountability by ministers under Fidesz, that no matter what would happen, they would keep their job. Now, when they're in office, and guess what? It looks like this Kelemen lady, she lied. It looks like her boss also lied. And what's happening with accountability? We have none of it. And this is a problem because the Hungarian electorate did not vote for Tisza because they wanted to have Fidesz but underneath a different coloured flag. They voted for Tisza in part, not just for the anti-corruption, but because they wanted a change in style of government. But what it looks like now is that the style of government really hasn't changed because we have our Prime Minister protecting this lady, we have her boss, the Minister, protecting this lady, and there's no personal accountability whatsoever, and that's a great, great shame. That's all for now. If you like my stuff, give me a like, give me a share.